Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the July 26th Lebanon City Council meeting. Our first order of business will be Pledge of Allegiance. Councilman Campbell, will you lead us, please? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, move on to the roll call members. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mike Kincaid.
Present.
Keith Campbell.
Here.
Morris Jones.
Here.
Dick Robertson.
Here.
John Copeland.
Here.
Brent Wheat is absent. Thank you. Sierra Messenger.
Present.
Thanks.
Okay, with that, move on to the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. Are there any changes to the minutes? Would entertain a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes are approved. All right, on to old business. First item up is Ordinance 2021-12 concerning the American Rescue Plan. This ordinance is on second reading. Just as a refresher, this ordinance essentially sets the framework that we have to put in place in order to use the roughly $3.4 million we're getting from the federal government for the American Rescue Plan. I'll have Rob read the ordinance quickly on second reading. We have any discussion or if you have any concerns with it. So go ahead, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2021-12 again establishes a local fund for federal assistance received from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, known as ARP, was enacted in March of this year. Among other things, it established a coronavirus local fiscal recovery fund, which provides for the disbursement of emergency federal assistance to local governmental units. The city is a non-entitlement unit of local government and therefore will receive an allocation from this fund. Therefore, be it resolved that this council will establish the ARP Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund as Fund Number 176, and Section 2 describes the purpose, which we outlined before, which is in accordance with the Social Security Act. Section 3 discusses the plan that the ARP fund must be made in accordance with a written plan that needs to be adopted by this council. Disbursements, again, must be appropriated by this council in accordance with the city's claim approval process. The uses of the ARP funds are established in Section 5. Again, the administration of the fund is established in Section 6. Section 7 talks about the closure of the fund that will occur on the later of December 31st, 2024, or the date of the final eligible payment from the ARP fund.
Thank you, Rob. And just to clarify for those watching at home, we probably will, or excuse me, not probably, we will, from a council perspective, talk through what the intentions are with those monies during our budget workshops. So if you want to be thinking now of if you have any ideas of how we can spend those dollars, we're kind of brainstorming and kind of compiling a list. So we'll kind of sort through that, and then we'll also draft our plan as is required by the ordinance, and then we'll have that kind of later this year. It's kind of the long-term plan for that. So any further discussion or comments concerning ordinance 2021-15?
So are you asking us to come up with criteria before the budget meeting begins, or discuss it at budget meetings?
No, we'll discuss it at the budget meetings, but if you hear any feedback from the community of ideas that are, it has to be the certain criteria that are laid out in the ordinance, right? So it's not like we can use it for anything. But there are different categories you can use it for. So if you have, but they're broad enough that there may be different priorities within them. So those are kind of just ideas to think about, just bring to the budget meetings and we can talk about it, and councils will can determine how we appropriate those funds. So
can we criteria,
yeah, I can share that, make sure you guys have that. I believe we sent it out once, but I can make sure you have it again for sure. Yep. Any other question or discussion on this ordinance? Okay. I would entertain a motion then concerning ordinance 2021-12.
I'll make a motion we approve ordinance 2021-12, the American Rescue Plan.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That is adopted. Thank you, council. All right, that concludes what I have for old business. Is there anything from council? Okay, new business then. First item up then is 2021-15 ordinance, amendment to Chapter 77 parking schedules concerning the creation of a no parking on the east side of North Clark Street from West William Street to Chicago Street. And this is on first reading. I'll turn it over to Kevin to introduce.
Yeah, thank you. A little bit of background on this. You might remember the last couple of years, we've kind of went through that Chapter 77, Schedule 1, a couple of times trying to capture existing no parking areas throughout the city, so make sure we have a solid ordinance for LPD to enforce. This was not previously caught, but as we were going through our repaving projects, North Clark Street is one of them. We talked to a couple people that lived along the street, as well as confirmed some stuff with David Newell that one time that street was no parking on one side. And given that we're going to do some improvements, we're also going to be connecting some sidewalk gaps and replacing all of the sidewalk ADA accessible curb ramps. Seemed like a good idea to put it back to no parking on one side, because when cars are parked both sides, it's really nearly impassable. So this is what's for you to consider tonight, is just adding one street to our Chapter 77 Schedule 1 for the easterly side of North Clark Street from the north line of West William Street to the south line of Chicago Street.
Okay. Any questions for that from council? Okay. Rob, I'm going to have you read the ordinance on first reading, please.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Ordinance 2021-15 concerns an amendment to Chapter 77, the parking schedules. Pursuant to Indiana Code, the City of Lebanon may exercise reasonable police power made by ordinance to regulate vehicular parking. This city has previously regulated the parking within the City Code and Ordinances, Chapter 77. Therefore, as of the effective date of this ordinance, Chapter 77, Schedule I of the City Code of Ordinance shall be amended to add the following, and that's parenthetical DDD, on the easterly side of North Clark Street from the north line of West William Street to the south line of Chicago Street. The remaining portions of Chapter 77 of the City Code of Ordinance are not affected and shall remain in full force and effect. And if any portion of this ordinance is for any reason declared to be invalid, then such decision shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Any further discussion from council after it's been read? Would I have council's consent to suspend the rules and move to second reading? Or is this seems to be a pretty minor change? Are everyone comfortable with that? Okay, then I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll make a motion, we suspend the rules on first reading and go right to second reading.
Okay. We have a motion to suspend the rules. Is there a second? Second. We have a motion and a second, and this does have to be unanimous to pass. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, rules are currently suspended. We'll move ordinance 2021-15 to second reading. We won't have Rob read again because he just did it 45 seconds ago. Any further discussion, comments from council? Okay. This time then I would entertain a motion concerning ordinance 2021-15, which is on second reading.
I'll make a motion, we approve ordinance 2021-15 on second reading on the amendment to the parking schedule, creating a no parking along the east side of North Clark Street from West William Street to Chicago Street.
Okay. We have a motion to approve the ordinance. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, that ordinance passes unanimously. Okay, we will reinstate the rules, and that concludes that item of new business. Next is letter of financial support 2021 to, or is this supposed to be 2021-02 or -22?
It is the 2021 second round of community crossing.
Okay.
grants, So
Okay.
we will not be using this money until next year. So
Okay.
That's where the confusion.
Just want to make sure it wasn't a date. I was going to
That
missay.
is not a date.
Okay.
No. I think
So-
I further confuse things by, I don't know, it's the engineer in me, I date things with the year first. When I create file names, I know that causes some confusion around buildings, so.
Fair enough.
Especially
Okay.
when they look like ordinance numbers when it's in my
Exactly.
dating
Yep.
system.
All right, just want to make sure I was clear on that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kevin to introduce this.
Very good. So it's that time of year again. Community crossings applications are open, and we have prepared a list of projects for consideration on that grant application. Before I get into, the matter at hand, just to give you an update, these are 10 projects. We use our pavement asset management plan, our PASER system, to choose which roads are most important from a maintenance standpoint, from a quality of the pavement standpoint, also keeping in mind the level of traffic that we see on these roads and weighing all those into these decisions. So 10 roads that are proposed for this grant application, and that would become our pavement resurfacing program for 2022 if we are successful. You might recall there are 19 roads that we're getting ready to resurface right now, and we've started last week. Only 10 this year because we've got about 6.6 miles of road in 2 projects. So the 10 total projects are Grant Boulevard from Elizaville Road to Angeli Way, Dale Court from the Dale Court cul-de-sac to Sherry Lane, Travis Drive from the Dale Court to the Travis Drive dead end at the cul-de-sac. So those are all in the Chadwick neighborhood. And then we jump to one of the bigger projects, which is Perryworth Road from Copeland Nice Road, or better known as County Road 100 South, down to County Road 300 South. Then we're going to jump back up to the north side, and these are really kind of based on priority. Finch Boulevard from County Road 250 North, or also known as Anderson Lane, to Acton Road, the north loop of Acton Road. Finch Court from Finch Boulevard to the end of the Finch Court dead end, or cul-de-sac. Acton Road from where it intersects Finch Boulevard to the north to where it re-intersects Finch Boulevard to the south. Snyder Lane, which is kind of between Acton Road, so from the north portion of Acton Road to the south portion of Acton Road. And then we jump back to some larger streets, Ransdell Road from State Road 32 down to Noble Street, and then Indianapolis Road from Hallbaker Road down to County Road 400 South. And that's about a 4-mile segment. So a lot more mileage than we probably usually get because we're not doing smaller segments. But those are the 10 projects that we have prepared for this round of community crossings. To keep in mind, there are 2 rounds of community crossings, ones that come out in January, one that come out in July. I personally like the July call because what ends up setting us up, if we are awarded, we find out about the award sometime in October. We can bid it at the end of the year when bidding is most competitive for the following year, and set up our paving program for the following year. The alternative, which is to submit in January, puts us in a situation where you're bidding road projects in April or May. Not the best time to be trying to attract contractors to your project. Most of them have already filled their schedule. So as Community Crossings is meant to be a sort of a pavement management program, we think it's best to go in for this second round of the application. Those projects in total just shy of $2 million. So it would be a 50-50 match. The state would put in $1 million, we would put in $1 million, and that would become our resurfacing program for next year. I've already got a question before the meeting about how would I intend to pay for this. $1 million is a little more than we typically put into MVH. Although I will say last 2 years, MVH and LRS have totaled, I think, $987,000. So we're getting up there. We've historically been a little lower than that. It's been more in the $500,000 to $600,000 range. The last couple of years, we've put a little bit more money into street repaving. So we're not far off. But I did do some checking, and I didn't get a chance to check with Tanya on this, so my fund report is dated back to 2020. I don't have a 2021 report. But the fund balances in MVH and LRS at that time were $2.5 million. So there's an opportunity there, and of course, this is your decision. I'm just telling you some options we might have for funding it. And then, as I said, we're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of, even if we were to drop back to lower funding levels on MVH and LRS of, say, $500,000, so I think there's some options where we have ready and available funds that would be appropriate. The financial commitment letter is required in our application. It does state that we would be using allocated funds from LRS and MVH, so this would be something. I don't know if you would want to put this in the budget, because we won't find out if we get the grant money till October. So it could be something where we're facing a special appropriation next year or towards the end of the year. But again, those are things for your consideration. But I will say, I think that it's not a big stretch for us to be able to fund $1 million worth of road programs, given our current budget trends that we've seen and the current fund balances that we seem to have. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about one other thing, kind of off track here, so I apologize. I mentioned this at the Board of Works report, but the state has moved up our letting date for Grant Street. So we're no longer bidding that in late 22 for 23 construction. We're bidding it in early 22 for 22 construction. So it's a year earlier. That means we've got to come up with money a year early. It's great that the state's decided to give us some funds out of schedule, but we now have to figure out how we fund that. The current estimates, and we won't know what the final is till we open those bids, but the current estimates for that, that project, the local share, is going to be just shy of $2 million. 1.986 is the total right now based on engineers' estimates that the state has put together. So where do we come up with that $2 million? Again, there's about 2.5 in funds, in fund balances in MVH and LRS. There's also about $600,000 in our CCI, CCD funds. Those are fund balances that we have typically been saving. With some of the work you did to reallocate, I guess maybe that's the wrong term, with MVH and LRS, we think those funds will actually increase at a rate higher than they typically do. But if just in real quick terms, how do we do both projects next year? Well, there's $600,000 there. There's $2.5 million in those fund balances, and then there's another million in, roughly $1,987,000 that we typically put into MVH LRS. So you put all that together, and that just covers both the Grant Street project and the additional work in pavement resurfacing if we were to drop down to 2018 levels on our MVH and LRS. Again, if we keep it up where it's at, it's not going to be a problem, but just trying to give you a global picture of road projects. Really, I'm just talking about for the next 12 months. I'm not even talking about beyond that. When we get into budget season, I've been asked by a couple of you to come in with at least a 5-year plan so you can see where we're looking at. Obviously, we've got Grant Street Phase 2. We've got Fordyce Road. We're also looking at 250 North. We're looking at Witt Road. Really starting to improve those county road cross sections as we begin to grow out of our normal city limits. So a lot of numbers, a lot of things thrown at you, but for tonight, we're asking just for approval to issue a financial commitment letter of roughly $1 million. I'll finalize the final budgets to get to the dollars and cents, but authorizing the mayor to sign a financial commitment letter to meet the state's matching requirement for the 2021-02 Community Crossing Grant Matching Program.
Any questions for Kevin on this?
What was the total cost for the Grant Street project?
Total cost for Grant Street, well, when you include all engineering and right-of-way, the total cost is about $5.8 million. The total local match is about $2.1 million. The 1.98 that I threw out, the just shy of $2 million, that's just for the construction. We've already funded right-of-way and engineering, at least our portions of it. So this is basically an 80-20 project. We're covering 20% of the cost.
Thank you.
I just got a question for
Yeah.
Tanya. Tanya, and we've never really budgeted for community crossing money in the past, have we? I mean, I don't remember ever doing that in our MVH or local road and street when we come at budget time. I just wonder, would that be easier to do or not do, or you tell me? I'm just
We kind of
curious.
have though, because we use what we budget for MVH and LRS as our match.
Sure.
And I think sometimes we've maybe done an additional to kind of fill the gap or so between, but I mean, we generally are funding our community crossings program because this essentially has become our road resurfacing projects for the year. And so we essentially use the money we budget to then do the work. So yeah, we kind of already.
we're
are doing-
already kind of
We essentially already
budgeted.
doing that, yeah.
To
Yeah,
put
we-
it in context, this year, 2020-02 community crossings, we submitted for $1 million as well, and we're going to need to match $1 million. Now, our bridge project came in a little over what we had been budgeted, but our road projects came in significantly under. So at the end of the day, the state's only given us 800 and some thousand. And that's, they only will give you 50% of what the actual dollars are, not what the grant award was for. And so that was funded by the MVH LRS monies that was budgeted for this year. Nothing specific to community crossings, but of course, when we were getting to fourth quarter, we were watching all these things, figuring out what the budget was for next year, figuring out what monies in 2020 that we weren't going to spend and encumbering those, which again is why I like the second round of funding, because not only can we bid it in the fourth quarter, we can also then put it under contract and encumber any money we have left over from the previous year's budget to go into the next year.
Right.
It seems to be working for us, and that's how I would recommend we keep doing it. We do have another bridge to think about from
I was
community
getting ready to
crossings.
ask about Elmwood.
Given the issues we have with the State Historic Preservation Office, because half of that bridge sits in Ulen, which is on the National Registry, it's taken a little longer than we thought it would to be ready. So I don't want to push it and submit in this round for community crossings. That's why it's all paving, because I don't know that we'll be ready to go to permitting and bidding and be under construction, because we have to be under construction by April of next year. And we were pushing to be under construction with the Whit Road Bridge, or under contract with the Whit Road Bridge by April of this year. And I think it's going to lag a little behind that. So I'm kind of thinking if we're going in for community crossings on bridge projects, and I feel like we should because they've always funded any bridge submittals that they get, I think we ought to look just to the round one of next year. I know it's a little different than the paving projects philosophy that I threw out. But I think we can be okay because we'll have that extra 6 months will give us plenty of time to have the bids ready to go and bid that as early as possible.
And that's a little different funding because we funded that with a bond we did last year as well, too.
Exactly, yeah,
so.
that doesn't come out of any of these funding scenarios that I've described. I should have mentioned that from the first. Yeah, you issued a bridge bond at the beginning of last year, and that's what's covering the bridge projects.
Yeah, and just to kind of put a cap on it, so long story short, right, I mean, if we go through our budget workshop sessions, in August, and then approving our budget, essentially, if we fund $1 million in our, between MVH and LRS total, that's our match for this, right?
Right.
So.
And so really, all we need to do is sort of keep budget levels this year and maybe hold back, 100 to 150,000 at the end of this year, and we would have it. Or like I've said, there's those other fund balances that are available to us, and we've talked about this before, but there's other fund balances that we keep surpluses on that we could also look to as special appropriations. But I don't think we're going to need to stretch outside of what we typically use for road work, which is MVH and LRS.
Any further discussion or comment from council?
No, sir. Yeah, but that won't take any effect yet.
Seem within the realm of, seem as doable. Have any concerns with the roads we've picked? Again, we go off by the Pazer. That's another opportunity for any of you have any comments of roads that are in your districts that you know are bad.
Should be
That's
bad
another good time to talk about this too, but.
Soon, we can ask him again, because we've been meeting.
We are updating our Pazer right now. We'll have that updated before the end of the year. We're statutorily required to. But I will say, our 5-year program with this, we will have completed our 5-year program in 2 years. So we're doing a good job of keeping our streets where they need to be. So I thank you for your commitment for that.
Kevin, what do you think our schedule is to get the road impact fee finished and an ordinance for that?
So the committee just completed scoring all so the modeling has been done. Our consultants came back and said, these are the intersections we think in 5 years will require upgrade to at least a signal. And then the committee sort of took a look at all those intersections and said, this feels like a signal, this feels like a roundabout, whatever the improvement that we wanted to propose. They're now building those costs into the model and will be coming back to us. Last I talked with our consultants, it seems like we're probably going to be in September, ready to have a draft ordinance to put before council. Obviously, there'll be some legal review we'll have to get through, but my hope would be in September, October at the latest, we're ready to adopt that ordinance, and then we begin the 6-month waiting period before we can start collecting road impact fees. Keep in mind, road impact fees are collected at building permit time, not at development. So, we're not going to miss out on a lot of the lots that are currently under construction because most of those are going to start, are starting earthwork and infrastructure now or into the fall. We're not going to have a whole lot more building permits pulled before the end of the year. So,
Okay.
So hopefully by April of next year, we're collecting road impact fees.
right. Just in time for construction season to start up and start
Yep.
collecting the fees.
Okay. Any further discussion, comments? Okay. This time then, I would entertain a motion to approve the letter of financial support and authorize the mayor to sign on your behalf concerning the community crossings program.
Could we say up to $1 million as the budgets are being tweaked?
Sure.
It won't go over that, but it's not, I don't have the dollars and cents exactly where they need to be just yet, but we
Sure.
will within the next 24 hours.
Yeah, so that might change.
It's actually went down a little bit. The 999,000 that's on the draft letter I sent you is now like
Yeah.
986. And I think I'm done, but I want to make sure.
I make a motion, we approve the letter of support and let the mayor sign that for crossing grant for up to $1 million.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that is
you very
approved. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, council. John, I believe you had some new business as well?
Yes. On July 21st, the Food and Beverage Committee had a meeting with, the members of the committee, be myself, Councilman Wheat, Councilwoman Messenger met with representative from the Lincoln's Lebanon, which is sponsored by the Boone County Historic Society. The presenter was Jane Hammock, who is president of both organizations at this time. They're asking for some funds to help with this year's Lincoln's Lebanon, be held in Memorial Park on September 25th and 26th, which is a Saturday and Sunday. She discussed several of the options that would be taking place. They'll have a reenactment with Abe Lincoln. They'll also have Jefferson Davis, and they'll have some debates and conversations going on for people to see. The event itself is free to the public. They will have food served there as well. They'll have different vendors. She didn't give a total, but it starts on Saturday at 9 a.m., and then at night they'll have a camp dance. On Sunday, they'll have church services. They'll have 2 battles scheduled at Memorial Park, both of them Saturday and Sunday. Both start at 2 p.m. This year, they'll have 4 cannons with the reenactment, which is more than they've had in the past.
Great.
They, of course, they didn't have the event last year due to the COVID, so some of the funding and things that they've gotten in the past didn't happen this year. So they made a request to the Food and Beverage Committee.
Bigger this year since they didn't have it.
And with that, we'd like to make a recommendation to the full council.
Is that a positive or negative recommendation?
Say it again?
Is that a positive or negative recommendation?
A positive.
Positive, okay.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
And $1,500
Okay.
is a recommendation from the committee.
Any
And
further, oh, sorry. Go
I would
ahead.
like to make a motion for
Okay.
$1,500 for the Lincoln's Lebanon. The one thing also, they have some banners that they would like to try this year to put up. We did call the mayor's office, and we spoke with some people that can put some of the banners up, maybe around Lebanon, before the event actually takes place, as a reminder and kind of an advertisement for the event itself.
Yep. We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yep, that is approved. Was there any other new business, John?
No.
Nope. Okay. Is there any other new business from council? Okay, then we move on to the claims, and we'll entertain a motion concerning the claims.
I make a motion, we pay the claims.
We have a motion to pay the claims. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Claims are approved. Any announcements or discussion? Any public comment? Okay. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Our next city council meeting will be Monday, August 9th at 7:15 PM. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.